You're not scared of failing. You're scared of what might shift if you actually follow through, of having to own your power, of not being able to pretend you're fine staying where you are, of what it might cost to stop playing small. Most people don't play small because they lack drive. They play small because being visible, and I mean really visible, comes with a risk of being misunderstood, misaligned, or even no longer relatable to the people who once felt safe. They play small because visibility feels risky. It changes everything around them. But here's the thing, staying in a version of yourself that no longer fits doesn't keep you safe. It actually keeps you pretty stifled. So in this video, we're gonna dig deep into why it's so hard to take real action when something actually matters. We'll unpack what's happening inside when your inner alarm bells go off, and why forcing yourself through fear doesn't work. You'll learn how fear doesn't mean stop, and how to start moving without overriding your body or waiting for clarity to magically appear. So by the end of this video, you'll walk away with a challenge that invites you into movement, not from pressure, but from truth. So if you've been looping in hesitation, this is where it stops. Let's go. Welcome back. My name is Francis. So let's talk a little bit why it's time for us to stop shrinking. All right, let's be honest. Playing small is a form of self-preservation. You might not even realize it, but holding back often feels easier than holding more, because holding more of your power, your truth, your potential requires capacity. And when you've been wired for survival, capacity can feel pretty threatening. But here's what nobody tells you. You're not just tired because you're doing too much. You're tired because you're contorting who you are to feel safe. So the longer you filter yourself to be more digestible, the more disconnected you become from what actually fulfills you. So the tension that you feel isn't proof that something is wrong. It's just proof that you're outgrowing the container that you've been living in. So keep watching, because the tension that you feel, it's not resistance about doing anything wrong or making the wrong decision. It's a signal that you're ready to stop pretending. So as a therapist and a coach, I see and hear a lot of the same things. You'll be surprised. Some of us think, oh, our problems, no one else has them. No one else can understand. They're unique to our own. And granted, they are, because they are your own personal journey and your own personal experiences, but there is a pattern. There's usually some sort of theme that a lot of us can actually relate to. So these patterns might look a little bit like you wait until the fear quiets down. You wait until the nervousness fades. You wait until you feel 100% certain. You wait and wait and wait. But that moment rarely comes. Why? Because your body doesn't get on board with change through thinking alone. So trying to logic your way into courage is like trying to learn about fire by reading it. Can't really do that. You need actual friction, real movement, something that meets fear where it lives in your body, not just your thoughts. You don't need hype. You actually just need a new relationship with your fears, one that invites your body into the process, not just your thoughts. So instead of managing fear, what if we shifted the way that you relate to it entirely? And that's going to make the biggest difference of all. So fear doesn't always show up as panic. Sometimes it sounds a little bit like this. Let me just think this through just a little more, one more time. Let me just make sure. Or, now's not really a good time. Good time. Or maybe I just need one more sign to complete the signs. They need to come in threes, sevens, whatever. But let's call it what it actually is. It's hesitation rooted in a lack of self-trust. So fear isn't the enemy, but left unchecked, it becomes the editor of your life, constantly revising, editing, and redlining anything that could stretch you into something real, something expansive. So the next time you feel paralyzed by something, ask yourself, where is this coming from? What is guiding those emotions and thoughts? Like, what is really underneath all of that? More often than not, that's fear wearing the mask of wisdom, clouding the voice of your deeper knowing, because your intuition, it doesn't argue, it doesn't push, it doesn't come from fear at all. It speaks quietly. It's usually pretty clear. It doesn't shout. It invites. It guides with presence, not pressure. So here's the shift. Fear does not mean don't or stop. It actually means slow down, get present, and listen closely. So your job isn't to push through it, it's to partner with it and decide what voice you're going to follow, yours or someone else's. Bold action, we're talking about taking bold action in this video. Bold action is not about being reckless or fearless. It's about being authentic, clear, and most of all, willing. When you take one clear, aligned action, not forced, not performative, it sends a shockwave through your old identity. Even if it's small, you interrupt the story that says whatever it's saying, like, I'm not ready, I just need more information, I'm not really qualified, any of that stuff. You stop performing and start participating. You stop rehearsing the version of you that fits and start choosing the version of you that's aligned. You disrupt the loop. You stop playing the role of the one who's still figuring it out. You remind your system, I don't have to keep living in rehearsal. And you start becoming the version of you who trusts themselves enough to choose, even if the outcome isn't guaranteed. So here's what I want you to remember. Bold action isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, but it changes everything. It's not about being fearless. It's about being unwilling to stay in emotional limbo. And I want to share what that looked like for me because I haven't always been someone who could take bold action easily. All the things that I talk about in these videos, they're not theories. They're actually lived experiences. I've found myself in every one of these stuck places, and I've had to work through them personally, not perfectly, but deeply enough to offer you a new lens, a new path that you can actually walk. So taking action again was always hard for me. I was the overthinker, the second guesser, the person who constantly hesitated, especially after growing up in a household where I wasn't allowed to have a real voice. If you grew up in a Caribbean household, you might be able to relate to that. But, when you're raised like that, you don't just lose your confidence, you often can lose your compass. And so every decision almost felt like a gamble. And I was always terrified of making the wrong decision. And even when I wanted to take action, I'd freeze, right? And I'd think like, okay, whose voice is this? So and so said this and so said that. Is this really my voice or am I trying to be who someone else needed me to be? Can I trust this voice in my head? But here's the truth that literally woke me up. I was like, time keeps moving with or without your participation, Francis. Like it's gonna move. Whether you're there or not. And so I had enough examples of what happened when I dragged my feet, missed opportunities, doors that closed, and worst of all, situations that validated my shrinking, my smallness, and moments that mirrored back to me the belief that I was trying to outgrow. So it was like, see, you weren't really good enough anyway. And so that's the danger of shrinking. It creates this feedback loop that convinces you that you are right to hide. So I didn't want to keep living in that loop. Something had to change. And so I made a new decision and I kept making these little new decisions as much as I could. And sometimes I would ease into the fear. Other times I just kind of like jumped right in fully. And sometimes I haven't all the information because, I'm not someone who can actually dip my toe into the cold water. I need to go all in. I have to jump in because if I hesitate for too long, my mind will literally just talk me out of it. But that's my rhythm. Yours might look completely different, and that's totally okay. And that's the whole point of this experience. You don't have to bulldoze your way through fear. You just have to stop giving it the final say. I always say life is one big experiment. And the sooner you treat it like one with curiosity, with wonder, with a little childlike awe, the easier, I say that loosely, it becomes to move forward from a place of trust and not pressure. So let that be the energy that you move with, not fear, but play and curiosity, not performance, but presence and truth. And so I'm not just going to leave y'all with a pep talk. You know what I'm saying? I got to give you a little something, something to practice. So let's bring this energy into your life with a challenge, one action that your future self will point back to and say, that's when it started to shift. So here it is. In the next 48 hours, take one bold action your past self would have avoided. Anything that you would typically delay, it doesn't have to be big. It just has to be true to you and a little scary enough that like, if I did this thing, oof, it feels a bit cringy. It feels a bit, tight in maybe your chest area, somewhere in your body. It feels a bit scary, but do it anyway. Do something that opens the energy, not for approval, but to honor the version of yourself that's co-creating your next chapter with something much greater than yourself. So for example, say the thing, apply for the thing, set the boundary, share the idea, invest in what you already know you want, tell the truth, even if your voice shakes, submit the application to whatever it is, then anchor it with a deep and final guttural breath and just let it go. Let it go into the universe. Don't loop, don't explain, just move. Don't ruminate, don't over edit, and don't delay. And when you do this thing, I want you to drop an emoji in the comments so that I could cheer you on. And if you're feeling brave, share exactly what that bold action was. What did you do? What did you decide to do? And let's bring whatever is inside of you on the outside and let's make it real. And yes, the what ifs will show up, maybe even louder than before, because it's like, oh no, we're heading into unknown territory. You hear things like, what if I mess this up? What if it changes everything and I'm just not ready for whatever comes from that decision or that action? What if people don't understand what I'm doing? Or maybe they don't understand you as much anymore because you took that action. But I want you to remember this. This is so important. What if the deeper pain, aside from all the second guessing, is staying stuck in a life that doesn't feel like yours? Avoiding discomfort isn't peace, it's self-abandonment dressed as logic. You're not here to coast, you're here to create. And that means choosing alignment over approval. I'm not going to act like there isn't a risk. There are risks in both directions. So choose the one that leads you back to yourself. All right, so we're nearing the end here. Just remember that you don't need a 5-year plan, okay? You just need one brave moment. You don't need approval. You just need a yes from yourself to yourself. One grounded, sacred yes, just one. And that's where everything begins to shift. Because when you move with what's true to you, quietly, clearly, the divine meets you there. Not with fireworks, but with peace, with synchronicity, with the next door open. Because the truth is, you're not waiting on clarity, you're waiting on permission. But you don't need permission to become who you already are underneath all of those hesitations, the overthinking, the lack of self-trust, and all the fears. So just take that first step, even if your hands shake, even if you're not 100% sure, even if it feels awkward. This is how you stop shrinking and overthinking. This is how you stop looping. And this is how you come home to yourself. And this is how, most importantly, you start living. And that's it, my friend. I hope this video was helpful. If this stirred something in you, honor it. And don't forget to subscribe so you can keep showing up for the version of you that's done waiting and ready to begin again. This is part 3 of a 4-part journey called From Dreaming to Doing, a series created to help you move out of resistance and into a life that actually feels like yours, one that you love. And if you're ready to keep moving, the next video is all about turning that bold energy into real momentum. We'll break down the 3-step formula to make your vision a reality in a way that actually feels doable, grounded, and aligned. So don't miss it. Hit the bell, subscribe, and share this video with someone who's been circling their own decisions. It might be helpful to them. And if you're ready to keep going, the full playlist is linked below in the description. This is your season of returning to yourself. So let's keep showing up one clear, authentic step at a time. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the other side of change.